Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, February the 13th, 2024. Today I want to talk about the Mars-Pluto conjunction. Now, the Mars-Pluto conjunction is actually exact tomorrow, at least London time, even New York time. But I don't want to look at the Mars-Pluto conjunction today in terms particularly of what it actually means for us right now, although we're certainly starting to feel the Mars-Pluto conjunction. I'm certainly going to mention it. But I want to consider what it might mean in a horoscope. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to very quickly go through a number of horoscopes of people and events where there is a conjunction between Mars and Pluto. So the reason I've got a picture of journalist Piers Morgan on this thumbnail is not because I think anything is particularly going to happen to him today or tomorrow, or although it might. It's more for the fact that he's got a Mars-Pluto conjunction in his horoscope. And so I'm going to consider, what that might mean. And yes, I will be looking at other people, events, and organizations. Got a couple of organizations that have Mars-Pluto conjunction. The European Union has a Mars-Pluto conjunction. So does Hamas. So I will be looking at that. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Tuesday, February the 13th, 2024. So let's look at what's going on today. So this is the chart for today. This is the planets set for noon, New York time, February the 13th. 2024. So the moon continues to be in Aries. Now, yesterday I kind of got myself into a bit of a mess by talking about different time zones. I don't think everyone appreciated that. But I was saying, well, in some places the moon was doing one thing, in another place it was doing something else, and I was trying to sort of please everyone, but maybe pleasing no one, I don't know. But today I don't think I have to worry too much about time zones because the moon is in Aries. You can see that the moon is in the middle of Aries, solidly in Aries. And you can also see that the moon is conjunct the comet Charon, and it is conjunct the North Node. So you could argue that the main thing going on today is this moon Chiron North Node conjunction. It's not particularly unusual in the sense that at the moment, because every month we're going to get it. But I think I should say something about it. And when I say every month we're going to get it, it's because at the moment North Node and Chiron are in conjunction. That conjunction won't last forever, but the North Node and Chiron do move relatively slowly. So I suppose we have to think about what does it mean for Chiron to be conjunct the North Node in Aries. Well, that kind of depends on your definition of Chiron. There are two sort of main views, as far as I know, probably others, but views about what Chiron actually means. The sort of classic view of Chiron is that it's the wounded healer. The centaur Chiron was damaged, was wounded by Hercules' arrows that had been dipped in the poison of the Hydra. I think I've got that right. If I haven't, my apologies. So the issue there is the Hydra's poison is so bad that you can never get over it. On the other hand, Chiron is immortal, so you've got this issue that Chiron can't be healed, but can't die. And so there is this permanent pain about Chiron. Chiron is also a centaur associated with healing. So there is that pain, and so it may be about healing. Chiron is about healing, I suppose, and that healing can be based on our own wounds. I'm slightly dubious about that, to be honest. It's like in the psychotherapy profession, a lot of psychotherapists become psychotherapists because they've got some wound, and they feel that because of that, they can help other people. I don't know about that. I really don't know. I think there's might be a problem there. I don't want to offend anyone. There's an alternative definition of or approach to Chiron is to say that it's a maverick, that it likes to break the rules. Kind of very different interpretation. Someone who doesn't like playing things according to society's way of looking at things. And so we maybe have to kind of bring those two together and trying to work out what it means for the North Node and the Moon and Chiron to be together. Now, I'd think that the Moon would kind of emphasize North Node conjunct Chiron in Aries. So what we should be doing today, if we can, is doing something to perhaps heal, but we have to do it in a sort of a dynamic way because the North Node is in Aries. So it might mean that we may be challenged to go out of our way to try to make someone else's life better. Someone who perhaps the rest of society is simply not interested in, doesn't want to be bothered with, someone who society pretends doesn't exist. So, North Node in Aries is often connected with selfishness, but this is a sort of selfishness about what we have to do. We may be with other people and they want us to do one thing, but we have to say no. It's more important that I get out of my way to actually help someone. So I think that could be a challenge that some of us have to face. It might also be about just simply being a rebel. It's okay. It's not Uranus. Chiron is not Uranus, but there is a rebellious aspect to Chiron. And so today, many of us might be challenged to be rebellious. I don't mean doing anything dangerous or destructive, but perhaps just thinking outside the box, and thinking outside the box in a way that might upset people, but might not make us friends. And I suppose perhaps that hints at the wound, and that sort of brings it together. The wound is that we are a rebel, and because we're a rebel, society is not interested in what, not just might shun us. We might be shunned because of our originality, because we're not playing according to the rules, and so there might be the wound. And of course, in today's cancel culture, when we get cancelled, that is a wound. That's kind of like being hit by the Hydra's arrows. We're never going to be healed from that, because being cancelled is like something that's always going to be with us. So that is something to be thinking about. Another thing going on today is that Mars is moving into Aquarius. Mars is in Aquarius, so Mars on average stays in a sign for about 6 weeks. So now that Mars is in in Aquarius, there has been a change. And in fact, Mars moving into Aquarius sort of links up with what I've just been saying about Chiron, because Mars in Aquarius is quite individualistic, can put its energy into being original, and being detached, not following, just not following the crowd. Mars in Capricorn is kind of more responsible. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It does what it has to do. It's quietly ambitious. Mars in Aquarius can still be ambitious, but in a very independent-minded kind of way, and might be very obsessed with that independent-mindedness because Mars is moving towards a conjunction with Pluto. I mean, technically, I think London time, that conjunction is, I think it's at 6:06 tomorrow morning on Wednesday. London time, that is. So that's 1:06 a.m. New York time. So this is going to be a time when we may be quite obsessed about our independence. We want to do it our way, my way. That might be one feature of Mars conjunct Pluto. So that is possibly. I've talked about Moon conjunct North Node conjunct Chiron. It may be that Mars moving into Aquarius is the key thing today. But I do think that they're not necessarily contradictory. I think that many of us are going to feel a need for being independent, and doing things our way. Not just a need, but perhaps an obligation. Obligation in a sense of, what are we supposed to be doing? What does the universe want us to do today? I think the universe wants us to think for ourselves, whoever we are. And, that is, that's possibly, what's going on today, what we should be really concentrating on. As far as midpoints are concerned, Mercury is actually aspecting the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint. The Jupiter-Uranus as a pair is, very much about freedom, asserting our freedom, saying things that we believe. And Reinhold Ebertin describes the Jupiter-Uranus pair as the thank the Lord combination. And there may be a certain sense of relief when we look at things, when we intellectualize things, and when we, sorry, that sounds a bit derogatory, when we think about things, there might be a moment of realization where we think, wow, it's okay. What we thought was a problem is not a problem at all. It may even be an opportunity. Finally, I suppose I should point out that Saturn is conjunct the Mars North Node midpoint. There is, where's Saturn gone? Saturn's there. So you see there's Mars, there's North Node. Saturn is right in the middle of it. Mars North Node as a pair is really about how we connect, putting great energy into making connections. That's one way of looking at it. Saturn on the Mars North Node indicates that our energy may be for nothing. We put a lot of energy into linking up with the world, but that energy may actually alienate ourselves. And I think that kind of links with what I was saying about, Moon conjunct Chiron conjunct North Node. We may find that we do fall out with people, but there are some people we thought we were going to be able to connect with, but we can't. Maybe because our views are too radical. Maybe we're just going in a different direction. I think that all contributes to the general theme today. Okay, so that's the broad picture. And so what I want to do now is look at what's going on for the 12 signs for today, which is Tuesday, February the 13th, 2024. Aries, today you do have a destiny, Aries, and that destiny is very much in accordance with your star sign. Aries has a reputation for being very assertive and dynamic. Now, by the way, I did say for your star sign, I do understand that some people like to read my sign forecast for the ascendant sign or even the moon sign. So it's up to you, how you're reading it. Maybe for your ascendant sign, it depends how you're coming into this reading. But Aries is assertive, it is dynamic, and that is the right thing to be doing. Because, the moon is in Aries and it's conjunct the North Node. The North Node is the way we should be moving forward. And, it's not a time to be thinking about other people excessively. Sure, you've got to think about other people, you've got to think about other people's interests, but you can't let other people's views hold you back. If you're worried that other people might be upset by you taking your own initiatives, well, too bad. And, these initiatives, in one sense, are selfish, but I think there is perhaps going to be a humanitarian edge to it. I mean, after all, the moon is conjunct Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. Aries, there is someone you can help. Someone can definitely benefit from your presence. It doesn't mean that you have to spend the whole day looking after someone. It may just be that you just have to make one phone call. Maybe you're concerned about someone, just calling them, saying hi, asking them how they are, that might be enough. It depends on the situation. Maybe you do feel you need to spend a whole day with someone, but I doubt it. It's just about perhaps showing that you care about not just other people's wounds, but the world's wounds. The world is very wounded. The world is very hurt. For example, the environment. That's something you might want to think about. But there are things that need to be healed, Aries. Maybe in your own life, in the life of your people around you, but maybe you need to go outside your immediate sphere. Go take a leap in the dark. I mean, not literally, but you need to take a leap in the dark to go and make someone's life better. And that's something you should definitely be doing, I think. At the same time, Aries, Mars is moving into Aquarius, and Mars is your ruler, and so Mars moving into Aquarius makes you, I think, sort of more independent-minded from usual. You're not really going to listen too hard to what other people are saying, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's okay. No, there's no need to be obsessively independent-minded. There's no need to advertise the fact. Yes, you might want to do things differently. Well, in that case, just go and do things differently. Don't tell everyone you're doing things differently. Just get on and do it. I mean, don't forget, Aries is about doing it, not just talking about it. But hence a slight warning about being obsessive about it. You might be obsessive privately, but don't get in a conflict for the sake of it. It's just best just go and do it. Now, from terms of your social life, things are going to be probably rather mixed. Some people, you're not going to get on with them because they're not on your wavelength, because their company is restricting. But there are new people to meet, and I think you should see if you can take advantage of that. Um, so overall, it's challenging. It's a challenging day in the sense that I think you've got things to do. But once you decide to get things done, I think you will get them done, and just don't feel that you have to be friends with everyone. Um, and as far as relationships are concerned, I'm not convinced this should be your main priority. Um, in fact, Aries, you might find that as Mars moves into Aquarius, you might actually realize that you and someone else have perhaps some similarities, but not the similarities you thought you had. And it may actually be a time where you have to start distancing yourself from one or two people, not least because you need to safeguard your independence. Taurus, you're perhaps feeling that you're not fully engaged with the world around you. And that's okay. I think actually in some ways, Taurus, you're going to be more effective when you are away from crowds, away from other people and their petty concerns. A bit of isolation might do you the world of good. And when you're isolated, when you're not with other people, okay, isolated is probably too dramatic a word, but when you're at a distance from the crowds, you actually have more freedom. You can start exploring the world in your own way, and I think that's perhaps where you should be going. So don't feel any obligation to meet people, talk to people. It's not really necessary. And it's also possible, Taurus, that there's something bothering you, something that you feel slightly, I won't say damaged, but maybe your feathers feel a bit ruffled, and you perhaps need a bit of time to sort the problem out or to sort the issue out. And there might be some self-healing needed today, and self-healing probably can't take place in a public arena. Now, that is not to say that you should be ignoring the world out there. You have your own path. It's a very particular path, and with Mars moving into Aquarius, I think that path is going to start to become very clear to you. Um, you know, Taurians in their own way are quite ambitious. Um, they always invariably have particular goals, particular directions in which they want to take their lives. And with Mars moving into Aquarius, I think you can really start to find that path. And it is a path that, is very personal. It's not something that is imposed upon you. You're not following a particular path because someone's told you to do it, because it's part of your family tradition or anything like that. It is a path which is yours, and it's no one else's. And I think you really need to accept that, and respect it. Now, I suppose I should finish off with relationships, and how you relate to other people. I think you may find that you and someone else, when I say someone else, I'm not just anyone else, but someone who's perhaps quite important to you, are approaching the world in different ways. It may feel that someone else is actually moving on, and that you're being left behind. I wouldn't worry about that too much. So if you're in a relationship and that the other person seems to be moving on, seems to be leaving you behind, it just may be that you're taking a bit longer than expected to work things out and to work out what needs to be done. And you will make your move, make your various changes and transformations at a later stage. But just today there might be a temporary feeling that you and someone else are moving in different directions. I don't think that's the case. It's more that you're moving at different speeds, and you're in different places right now. But I think that's going to change over the next few days. And I should also say that if you are involved with another person for whatever reason, that other person is going to be very independent-minded today, and they're going to be very particular about what they want and what they don't want, and that's something you might not be too keen on, but you need to respect that, and consider the possibility that this other person is absolutely right in their view of the world. Of course, if they're wrong, if they're so independent-minded and they're going in a disastrous direction, well, okay, in that case, you've got to work out how to intervene. But I think in most cases, you should respect other people's decisions and respect the paths that they have chosen for themselves. Gemini. I think Gemini, it's quite a sociable day. I mean, after all, the moon is in Aries. In the Gemini chart, Aries has an association with socializing, and I think that's good. I suppose there's a question: is who are you socializing with, and why are you socializing with them? It's possible that your choice of friends and your choice of contacts is going to be somewhat individualistic, so you need to make your own decisions about who you want to meet, who you want to be in contact with, and in the process you might find that there are certain people that you're mixing with who are under the weather. They're not quite themselves, but you still feel that you need to be with them. And I think the reason being is that you can in some ways help them out. There's something you've got to offer, and maybe that's where you're going. So what have you got to offer? I think you've got to offer a new way of looking at the world. Some people are feeling negative because they're only looking at the world in one particular way, and maybe they need a Gemini like you to come into their life and change their emphasis, change their focus, and that's certainly the right thing to be doing. Also, Gemini, you should perhaps be considering your hopes for the future. It's not a time to be thinking about everything day at a time. What do you want to be doing in a week or a month or a year? Do think about that. And when you really think about it, I think, Gemini, you might come to the conclusion that you're getting it wrong or have got it wrong. That perhaps you've been too focused on things that are just completely unimportant, and now you want to rededicate yourself to the future, and it's a future that goes beyond money and power and status. It's a future that is focused on what you're supposed to be doing on this planet, and that's always an issue for Geminis. Geminis if they're not careful, can think themselves out of existence. Um, and I say that as a Gemini. Um, so you don't want to think yourself out of existence, Gemini. You want to work out for yourself a clear direction for the future, which relates to your purpose, and that is something that you should really consider. And I think you're helped by the fact that the planet Mars is moving into Aquarius. So Aquarius is a sign which has a fair amount of sympathy with Gemini, because Gemini and Aquarius are both air signs. So with Mars moving into Aquarius, you can start to think about higher things, the cosmos, philosophical ideas, and you can really put your energy into that, and that can help you get a clearer view. Don't look at the world by with your face on the ground, looking at the bare asphalt. Try to look at the world from a view of from a higher view. So when you can actually see the picture, when you can start to see the horizon and see the from a view of miles up. That's how you should see it. Get the broad view, and Mars moving into Aquarius can really help you to get that broad view. Not least the fact that Mercury is your ruling planet, is in Aquarius, and so now that Mars moves into Aquarius, you feel that that something is happening. So in a way, Gemini, there's actually quite a philosophical edge to what's going on today. Finishing with relationships. Relationships are there to help you make the most of your potential. That's what they're there for. Relationships are not a millstone around your neck. That's not what they're there for. And I think by making some changes in your social life, by mixing with people who are different from you, but more in accordance with your destiny, this does raise the possibility of new relationships. In terms of existing relationships, I think things should be okay. But just make sure that you're respected. You don't want a situation where partners assume that it's going to be the same old you with the same moving in the same old way. You need space, and you need respect, and you need understanding, and you need someone who can who is able to talk about things in a logical, rational way, and not impose any view or preconceived conception onto you, because today it's important that you're a free spirit. Cancer. Cancer is a sign which traditionally is considered to be nurturing, and warm and emotional and caring. And I don't say those words in a sort of mocking way. That's great. That's fine. And I think today you should live according to those words. Being caring and emotional and nurturing. Because today, Cancer, you can certainly make the world a better place. I mean, after all, Cancer, the moon is conjunct Chiron. Chiron, as I said at the beginning of this video, is a wounded healer. And there are things you can do, Cancer, to heal. And, healing is a sort of a double process, isn't it? I mean, the first thing you've got to do is work out what the wound is. And secondly, you've got to heal it. and Cancer is going to, the sign Cancer is going to be pretty sensitive to this today. I think you're going to be aware of other people's wounds, particularly if you're working today, if you're out there at work, in your career, the people you meet. If someone's not right or someone's out of sorts, you're going to know about it pretty quickly. You're just going to feel it. And that gives you an opportunity to make things better. Make things better may just be about listening, might be not just talking, but just listening to see what someone has on their mind. Though it is possible that the wound is not personal. It may be that if you're working, if you're involved in any organization, it may occur to you that organization has a wound. Every organization is an entity in itself. You can get dysfunctional organizations. You can get paranoid organizations. I suppose it's all part of the collective. And so consider the possibility that the organizations you're working with are wounded. And then consider, how are you going to be able to deal with that wound? Without perhaps having to call in a management consultant, or what can you do? And I think I suppose you first have to identify the wound. Then you have to consider, can you do anything about it? Does the organization want to change themselves? If they don't want to change themselves, well, maybe then you have to reconsider your role in that organization. I know that's quite a lofty aim, and just maybe you're working at a sort of a low level in the hierarchy, and these kind of issues don't affect you. But I suppose if you're in a smaller organization or you've got a lot of power, that might be something that you do have to consider. But in a general sense, Cancer, in terms of your destiny. Your destiny today, what you should be doing today, you should be out there. You should be making things happen. And if you want to get really involved in your work and in your career, even if you're doing it in a completely selfish way, that's fine. That's what you should be doing today. It's certainly not a day for just to be sort of spending all your time at home doing nothing or worrying about what your family want. There might actually be a bit of pressure in that direction, but I think that's pressure that needs to be ignored or negotiated with, because it's your direction forward is what really matters. Now, I suppose I should point out that Mars is changing sign. So for some time, Mars has been in Capricorn, which is your opposite sign. And Mars in Capricorn may have caused the occasional argument, a disagreement with other people. Partnerships may have been hard work because you and the other person may not have always agreed with one another. But with Mars changing sign, I think in some respects the emphasis on relationships and the sort of the dynamic conflict, just certainly the dynamic connection between you and another person, that's starting to fade now. And you're sort of left with a more sort of internal process where you're perhaps thinking about how you relate to another person, and not just thinking about it, you're feeling it as well. And so there's perhaps a lot of emotion to work through. Now, Mars is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, so that is not an invitation to be going crazy with with the external expression of your feelings. Yes, you can have powerful feelings. You can be angry. That's fine. But just because you're feeling angry with someone doesn't mean you should necessarily express that anger. Now, I'm not suggesting you repress anything. It's just you just have to treat anger carefully. There are many ways of expressing anger, and the obvious ways of expressing anger are not necessarily the right ways. And maybe today, if you're feeling angry at all, maybe you should be focusing that anger into your career, or into your interactions with whatever organizations you're involved with, because that anger can actually be constructive and it can change things for the better. Leo. Leo, you are in a place where you need to consider alternatives. Don't be satisfied with where you are. Don't be satisfied with what you're doing. It may be fine, but it's not the whole story. And you now have an opportunity, I think, to sort of take things to a new level, if that's what you want to do. And indeed, I should say that's what you should be doing. You need to be thinking about sort of broader horizons, and perhaps saying goodbye to some of the trivia from the past. It may be, for example, that you've spent too much time trying to get on with other people, too much time being what society wants you to be, too much time saying the right things, too much time trying not to cause offense. That's got to change. The moon is in Aries. Aries is a sign that has an affinity with your star sign, Leo, and it's a time. Aries is an assertive sign, so don't be satisfied with the way things are around you. You need perhaps to make a move. That could be travel. It could be sort of metaphorical travel. You don't have to move anywhere to travel. It's traveling in your mind, traveling in terms of your knowledge base, discovering new things. All of that is something you can do. Now, it is possible, with the moon conjunct Chiron in Aries, is that you can help people who are far away from yourself. In other words, you don't have to be face to face with someone to help them. It may be maybe you need to make a long distance phone call. Okay, sorry, that's a very old fashioned way of looking at things. People don't make long distance phone calls, do they, anymore? I mean, they don't. It's not special for being long distance, but it's about calling someone through whatever medium you use, who lives a long way from where you are, hundreds of thousands of miles away, hundreds or thousands of miles away, and see how they respond. So if you haven't talked to someone for a long time, but you feel you should be talking to someone, and they're on the other side of the world, or on the other side of your country, then give them a call. I think they'll be really pleased to hear from you. And once they start talking, I think you'll realize that there's actually something you can do to make their life better. Now, while this is going on, Mars is moving into Aquarius, your opposite sign, and from a Leo perspective, that is important. And I suppose that one does have to give a bit of a warning there, because Mars is quite an angry energy. It can be. So when Mars moves into your opposite sign, Aquarius, that can suggest conflict. You've already got a lot of stuff in Aquarius. You've got Sun, Mercury, and Pluto's in Aquarius. Now Mars joins them. In fact, Mars is starting to make a conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius, your opposite sign. I think you and someone else may have a very big difference of opinion. It's perhaps someone else. You take the view that someone else is being too independent-minded, is being too detached. They're not revealing things to you, and that may upset you. But I think, Leo, it's not a time for worrying about your ego or worrying, someone is ignoring you. No. I think you have to tread carefully, and if someone is annoying you, and I think you may well find that someone is annoying you today, don't just automatically go into battle mode. Just try to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and I think it's perhaps important to respect other people's independent-mindedness. So yes, do tread carefully with that Mars moving into Aquarius. Relationships of all kinds need to be treated with respect, and you should make a special effort to understand why people are doing what they're doing. And don't be offended, as I said, if you feel you're being ignored, because there may actually be a good reason for it, which has nothing to do with you. Virgo. I believe, Virgo, that things are getting a little bit complicated. You can't fully express yourself, because I think you kind of take the view that the world is complicated, and you're not really in the mood for spending a lot of time with other people, just relaxing, enjoying yourself. No, that's not something you can do, Virgo, because your focus is quite internal. Yeah, you're putting a lot of energy into your own private feelings, and I think that's okay. I think that's something you should be doing, because Virgo, sometimes you can just spend a lot of time worrying about things that aren't particularly important. And today, I think you're starting to think about what really matters. And I think that is a good thing. Now, in the first instance, you might feel that this is very negative, that you're wondering about what other people are going to think if you put so much energy into your own private concerns. And don't forget money. I mean, financial matters may be important to you. You may feel, from a financial perspective, that there's some kind of wound, a feeling that maybe some money has been denied to you, that someone owes you money and you're not getting it, and that really upsets you. Or in certain situations, you might be concerned about wills, whether it's you leaving money to someone or someone else leaving money to you. That kind of thing might make you angry, might make you annoyed, and that's something you're busily sort of focusing on. And in some cases, Virgo, you might be thinking about issues of life and death. Some Virgos might want to write a will, because they're thinking about death. I'm absolutely not. Certainly not saying you're going to die or anything. But I'm not saying like that. But it's just something that you're going to be thinking about. And actually, that's not such a bad thing to be doing, because the moon is conjunct the North Node. The North Node is where you're supposed to be going, and North Node, and from an Aries perspective, it's all taking place in Aries. Let me say it again. From a Virgo perspective, you've got a North Node conjunction in Aries, and Aries, from a Virgo perspective, is often associated with death and rebirth, but death. So issues around death may be of concern to you, but I must make it clear that I'm not talking about real death. It's just death. Death is something we have to deal with. Death is, even if, even if no one's going to die for decades and decades and decades, like wanting to write a will. Just because you write a will doesn't mean you're going to die tomorrow. But yeah, these kind of issues are going to be having an impact on you. Now, if you are in a position to help someone, it probably would be at quite a deep level. Quite this because there is quite a lot of intensity going on here, Virgo, and you may have to listen to someone for a long time before you really understand what's going on. But I think you'll be good at listening. You'll be good at, how should I put it, assertive listening. Now, listening is often seen as quite a sort of a passive process, but this is for you, Virgo. It's assertive listening. You can listen to someone assertively, and so see if you get that kind of opportunity. Now, as far as relationships are concerned, it kind of depends on the relationship. If you're involved in trivial relationships, then that's not really very important, not the issue. However, with this moon conjunct Chiron, conjunct the North Node in Aries, then I think if it's a sort of a close relationship, then there may be a real sense of emotional depth here to really understand what's going on, and perhaps you and someone else can really work out what the true nature of a relationship is in a fairly intense and certainly very non-trivial kind of way. Finally, and I should probably end on a positive note. I think today you may reach a stage, and this is particularly the case if you've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of analysing, a lot of worrying, that kind of thing. You may reach a moment where suddenly things make sense, and there may be an enormous sense of relief. Suddenly it all makes sense, and you realise what you were really worrying about isn't really anything to be worried at all about. And there may be, you almost like want to go on your knees. And I said, I've talked at the beginning about Mercury being on the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint, which Eberton called the Jupiter-Uranus as a pair being the thank the Lord pair. And so maybe that's it. Maybe there'll be a sense that you want to go on your knees and thank the Lord because you realise that things are resolving, or that something you thought was a big problem is not actually a problem at all. Libra. Well, like it or not, Libra, you do have to consider other people and all the many things that could be influencing your life. You're not perhaps as independent as you'd like to be, and now that is very clear. Things going on outside your immediate realm are having an impact on you, and you do need to accept that. And in terms of relationships, you need to give people a chance to express themselves. It's not necessarily about you being the person who always makes things happen. But I mean, this isn't such a problem because you are a Libran. You do understand that you have to consider other people if you're a typical Libran. So yes, let other people have their say. That doesn't mean to say that you have to accept what they say, but generally speaking, if you give someone the opportunity to take the initiative, it may be that initiative is the right initiative, even if in the first instance it doesn't make much sense. But I should point out that the moon, while moving in it through Aries, your opposite sign, is making a conjunction to Chiron and the North Node. Okay, I've talked about this Chiron quite a lot today. In terms of you, it may be someone you're close to may have an issue or a wound. There may be something that's not right with them. And it's down to you to work it out. Or rather, it has an impact. So if someone has got a wound, what do you do? And I think it may be about putting your energy into helping this person. I think you can really help someone. Once you see what's wrong, you can help them on a one-to-one level. Now, if you are looking for new relationships, or you find a new relationship, someone, on whatever level, you may be attracted to people who do have a wound, whether it's a physical wound or a psychological wound, something that can't be healed, or at least can't be healed easily, because, Chiron is the centaur, the wounded, the centaur that can't die but can't be healed. And so that is something you should look for in other people. No, I don't say look for. I mean, it's when you meet people, just particularly for the first time, just consider the possibility that they are concealing a wound, and I think very soon you will be able to see that wound. But when you do interact with other people, it's going to be very important that you accept their independence and accept their way of doing things. Reason being is because Mars, which in a Libran chart, Mars rules your opposite sign of Aries. Mars has just gone into Aquarius. So Mars going into Aquarius conjunct Pluto describes a person who is very independent-minded, who wants things done their way. So Libra, don't ever think, at least today, don't think you can change someone's mind. Don't think that you can tell someone what to do. Don't think that you can impose your will on anyone, because you can't. Having said that, I think that you are going to be quite good at explaining to people what is possible and what is not possible, maybe from actually quite a legalistic perspective. But when I say explain, I mean explain. I don't mean lecture. So if you feel that someone is about to make a mistake, particularly a legal mistake, an administrative mistake, the way to deal with the matter is not to tell them what to do. It's just to explain the situation. Just do it in an impersonal kind of way, almost like saying, well, you know what, the law says this, or something like that. Just explaining what is possible, what is not possible, without personalizing it. And that may be your best chance of having an influence. Scorpio. Mars is your ruler. Yeah, it's Mars your ruler. Pluto doesn't rule Scorpio. That is a modernism. Mars is changing sign. It's changing sign from Capricorn to Aquarius. And the moment it changes sign, it makes a conjunction with Pluto. I think right now, and in fact in a general sense over the next sort of 6 weeks or so, Scorpio, I think your privacy is going to be quite important. A lot of your energy is going to be going into sort of private concerns, or perhaps into your home. There are things that need to be done as far as you're concerned in your home. The outside world is going to perhaps be of less concern to you. You may regard it as it's irrelevant, and you may just be taking the whole thing very seriously. You need to basically sort out your basic grounding. And yes, with Mars moving into Aquarius, conjunct Pluto, you're going to be very independent minded, and you might actually sort of take the view that your home is your castle, that kind of thing. That's fine, provided you don't take it too far. Scorpios can be very intense. They can be very private people, and I think that this concept of privacy, is going to become very important to you over the next few weeks. In the process, you might find yourself distancing yourself from certain people, even people you're with all the time, maybe even spouses, partners. You may feel a bit distant because it may feel that you're going in a new direction. This sort of introspective focus thing may not go down too well, at least to begin with. So do consider the impact you're having on other people. It's great to want to protect yourself. That's okay, but if you do it in an overly dramatic way, and if you don't make some concessions to people who are important to you, I think that might be unfortunate. So, I would have said perhaps don't exaggerate. And contradictory as it might sound, your social skills, if you give them a chance, are actually quite good. Now, but I suppose it's socializing has to be done on your level. What you want to do is protect your privacy, protect your space, but at the same time, you can really you can make an impact. You can link up with. I don't say link up with people, but you're very good at making connections. I think I actually said the same thing yesterday. You are at the moment. You are good at making connections, and this is something you can put your energy into. You may not want to put your energy here, but I think it's something you can do. So you don't have to abandon all your contacts. Even if you are barricading yourself in your castle, because this is not the Middle Ages. We now have the internet. So that's one aspect of what's going on. I think that you may feel, Scorpio, that there's work to be done on your own health. And I'm not making any health warning here. It's just that I think you feel that you could be healthier. You're thinking about your health more than usual. And so, Scorpio, I think that means that you're going to perhaps want to make some changes to your diet, exercise program. I think you might also take the view that that health has a psychological dimension. That if you want to be healthy, you need to hang around with the right people and not hang around with the wrong people, and that may be part of your impulse to get away. So it is the right thing to do, to be looking after your health. I mean, after all, there is a conjunction between the moon Chiron and the North Node in Aries. In a Scorpio chart, Aries has a special connection with health, and so that is a good thing to be doing. And I should also say that you can do something to help someone else with their health. Just sort of gentle advice. You don't have to pretend to be a doctor or anything. You just have to give people some common sense advice. and be quite assertive about it. So if you see someone doing something that is destructive to their health, so I don't know, if you've got a friend who's smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, then fine, just tell them, then it's okay to be quite clear that their behavior is unacceptable and they're destroying their lungs, or that's okay. So if someone is doing something that is not good for them, Aries is an assertive sign, and I think Scorpio, it's okay to be quite brutal with them. Maybe you need to shock them into taking action to heal themselves. So there's a lot going on, but don't overdo it, Scorpio, with the introspection. You need to do what's needed to look after yourself and your physical and psychological interests, but you don't have to completely shut out the outside world, because in your own way, you're very good at making connections. And so maybe, Scorpio, you can get the best of both worlds. You can make new friends, make new contacts, but also look after your own privacy. Sagittarius, you are in quite a playful mood today in some respects. You enjoy being different. You're certainly not going to follow the crowd. And maybe with the moon making a conjunction to Chiron, in your case, we may be seeing the maverick aspect of Chiron that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. Chiron likes to do things differently, and you like to do things differently, and your playful approach could actually go down really well. It's what people want. It's what people appreciate. People don't want too much seriousness. I mean, I think the world is so serious. There are so many serious things going on in the world, but some people are just overwhelmed by it all. And Sagittarius, you can brighten things up for everyone. And but that means doing things differently, saying things that no one's expecting, having a sense of humor. All of that is going to matter. And Sagittarius, it's about understanding your power, because the things you say, Sagittarius, can really have a huge impact. You can say things which catch people unawares, and they think, wow, that's really strong, and they forget their worries and they just think, what has Sagittarius just said? Normally that might be a quite dangerous approach, but I think today it might be appropriate. And so, we talked about Chiron and healing. I think the way you can heal the world today is perhaps to get people to lighten up. Just be a typical Sagittarian, and the way you communicate is going to be very powerful, but independent. It's just your independent mindedness is going to be is really going to be obvious, and don't spoil things by listening too hard to other people, in particular your friends. Now, fortunately, Sagittarius is not a sign that is known for its conciliatory, compromising nature. So just remember that. There may be a little bit of pressure to compromise and not to rock the boat, Sagittarius, but I would suggest, Sagittarius, that you ignore that pressure. You don't need that pressure. It's not helpful. You've got to think about your destiny, and your destiny is today is not to compromise. Capricorn, you feel that your energy kind of needs to be going a sort of downwards rather than upwards. You feel that there are things to be done in your own sphere, and you can't really be bothered to interact with the world out there. And that's fine. I mean, that's the way it is. And maybe you need to spend time with your family, more time than usual with your family. Perhaps there have been issues in your family recently that you've been ignoring. Maybe family members haven't quite got on with each other. And, what you do need to do now is you need to come in and sort them out. Perhaps do a bit of sort of family healing. That's because you've got, there's a moon conjunct Chiron, conjunct the North Node in Aries, and Aries in the Capricorn chart, does have a sort of special association with home and family and domestic life. So maybe that's something you need to do. Maybe it's all about personal healing as well, meaning you need to spend time in a place which is sort of calm and relaxing, where you don't have to be someone you're not, where you don't have to pretend. There are still going to be pressures to be out there, to have a high public profile. But today, I'm not convinced. I don't think you need to have a high profile. I think it's okay to be somewhat retiring. Nonetheless, the planet Venus is still moving through Capricorn. Venus is about relating. Venus is not going to stay in Capricorn for much longer. It does move into Aquarius at the end of the week. So, in spite of your feeling that you want to focus on, family, home, whatever, there are some people that mustn't be ignored. They do need your attention, because if you ignore them now, you might regret it later. So there's probably at least one person that you need to keep in touch with. You just need to make it clear to them that you're still there. So that is something to consider. One point about money: Mars has moved into Aquarius. So Mars is your Mars has been in your star sign for some time. So it's moved out of your star sign. And so the sign following Capricorn, Aquarius, is related to your possessions and what you own and what you and so with Mars moving into Aquarius, particularly as it makes a conjunction with Pluto, some Capricorns may actually be very concerned about what is owed to them, how much money they've got, if they've got enough money, are they holding on to their money? You need to sort this one out. You know how to sort it out. I'm not going to tell you how to sort it out. And this is perhaps another reason why you need time in your own space, where you need perhaps to focus on your home and your domestic life, and also perhaps domestic finances. That might be something to consider, because I think that there is useful work that you can be doing. Aquarius, Mars is moving into your star sign. This does put you in a fairly powerful position. Mars is a planet which is assertive, aggressive. It looks after itself. So when Mars moves into Aquarius, you're suddenly in a strong position, and you suddenly want to assert yourself. Not least because the moment Mars moves into Aquarius, it makes a conjunction with Pluto. Now that conjunction with Pluto doesn't actually become exact until tomorrow, but this Mars conjunct Pluto is going to put you in a strong position, and you are going to be able now to really assert yourself in quite a massive way, but don't use too much energy with Mars moving into Aquarius. There is a danger that you use a sledgehammer to crack a peanut. It's not necessary. You are in a strong position. You just need to accept that you're in a strong position. So if there's something you want, just a little bit of energy is probably enough to get it. And I think also today it's going to be very important to consider the way you communicate. The way you communicate, Aquarius, is going to matter. Aquarians have a certain reputation for being a bit cold and aloof. I mean, Aquarius is a Saturn-ruled sign. And there is a danger that you say things which need to be said, but you say them in the wrong way. So, for example, you might want to criticize someone. Someone's annoying. Someone's doing something wrong, and you want to tell them they're doing something wrong. But how are you going to tell them? If you use the wrong language, you'll achieve nothing. So you're going to need a certain amount of sensitivity, a sensitivity that might not be immediately obvious. So think about how you're going to express yourself. Think about how you're going to communicate with people, because it is a time when the message matters, when things said in the right way can actually make the world a whole lot better. Things said in the wrong way can make the world a whole lot worse. So get the message right, and be as sort of sympathetic and understanding as you can. And in that way, your message can hit home and can be accepted, and people will understand what you're trying to say, and you can actually help them. There are some people who need advice, they need reassurance. You maybe need to kind of dynamically go into someone's life and provide a reassurance. That's something you can do, but it may not be immediately obvious how you do it. You just need to make sure you're adopting the right style. So Aquarius, just do get the balance right, and of course that applies to relationships as well. It's a day when I wouldn't have said that relationships are your number one priority. I think because you'll be too focused on yourself, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't improve and enhance relationships, provided you communicate in the right way. Communicate in the wrong way, then you could fall out with someone. But anyway, Aquarius, I've told you what you need to do, and I think it's obvious. You probably didn't have to hear it from me. You knew it anyway. Pisces. Money may be bothering you a little. There is this Moon Chiron North Node conjunction in Aries, and sort of Aries in the Pisces chart is a sign that is connected with money. You may feel a certain sense of a sort of a financial wound. You may feel that money-wise you haven't been treated properly, perhaps. That something is owed to you and it's not been given to you, and that could really upset you. But it's important that you don't get obsessed about it. The moon is conjunct the North Node, not just Chiron. The North Node represents the way forward. And so to be thinking about money in the right way is actually, Pisces, the right thing to be doing. And the universe would not be telling you to think about money if it wasn't to be the case that you could actually do something to improve your financial situation. You certainly can. And you're helped by the fact that the moon is making a sextile with Mercury. Mercury has an association in the Pisces chart with other people, so there is definitely someone out there who can help, who can provide good advice, and also moon conjunct the North Node is in Aries. That's an assertive sign. So rather than feel sorry for yourself in terms of money or what you feel is owed to you, then actually you can take action. You can take action to perhaps get the money you feel that you're owed. So don't give up, and at the same time, Jupiter is your ruler, and Jupiter's in Taurus, and Taurus is quite a focused sign. It's obviously Jupiter's been in Taurus for a long time, but at the moment you can sort of enhance the energies of Jupiter, that expansiveness of Jupiter, and you can start to actually communicate the expansiveness of Jupiter in quite an over the top, I won't say violent way, but in quite a dramatic way. And so there may be a certain point over the day when you can make your feelings absolutely clear, when you can really tell someone, look, this is what I want and I need to have it now. And if you get your timing right, you could actually make a very powerful impression. Finishing up with relationships, I think it's a good day for relationships. As I've already suggested when I talked about the fact that the moon is making a sextile to Mercury, and Mercury is a ruler of, because is a ruler of your opposite sign. Virgo is the opposite sign to Pisces, so Mercury is is in fortunate aspect of the moon. So there's at least one other person who you can form a very positive connection with, and this other person may actually work something out for you, and through this interaction with this other person there may be a realization, and this realization just could bring to you just this incredible sense of freedom that actually something you were really worrying about a lot is not the major issue you thought it was, and may just be a moment where just everything is clear, and the world will seem a lot more positive and welcoming than it was perhaps at the beginning of the day. Okay, that's it with my look at the day from an astrological perspective. And what I'm going to do now is look at the day from a perspective of the I Ching. So I asked the question, what is Tuesday going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And I only got a single hexagram. It didn't move, and it's hexagram 61, which is inner truth. And inner truth is, as it sounds, it's just suddenly we understand the world for what it is. It suddenly all makes sense. The confusions from the past disappear, and I think that there's a great sense of sort of freedom and even relaxation with this hexagram 61, inner truth. And I think this links up with one of the midpoints, midpoint, Mercury aspecting the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint. Jupiter-Uranus is about a sudden sense of sort of relief, as I said, about Ebertin, sort of thank the Lord. We see the truth for what it is, and that truth really makes things a whole lot better for ourselves. Once we understand the truth, people will be, people can start to listen to us. And at the same time, if we have been trying to say something to other people and they haven't been listening to us, suddenly they're going to start listening. They're going to start realizing, hold on, yeah, we are making sense. So if in the recent past you felt that people just haven't got the message, then keep trying, because you're really there, you're getting there. People are starting to understand. Now, in terms of ego, there may be a sense with inner truth that we realize that that we need to listen to other people. It's not just about us It's not just about people listening to us. It may be about us listening to other people, listening to someone else, maybe a superior, maybe an authority figure, someone we have been fighting against. We've been fighting against, and suddenly we see the truth, and it may actually be okay to be in a position of a subordinate position, may actually be the right approach here. It gives us actually a bit of freedom being subordinate rather than being the one in control. Perhaps because we don't have to make the major decisions anymore, because we actually accept that someone else is making decisions for us, and we have this realization that they are making the right decisions. Now, this hexagram is locked. It isn't moving anywhere. So we're not really talking about big action here. We're talking about an inner realization. Now, this hexagram, it does have a nuclear hexagram, though. If we look at the lines in between, in the middle, so if you look at the second from the top, and then we look at the third from the top, and the fourth from the top, we've got the top trigram. And then we've got we look at the, sorry, I'm not making that very clear. If we remove the top and bottom lines, then we actually have a nuclear hexagram. Let me just show you the nuclear hexagram. That's the nuclear hexagram. That's the hexagram in the middle, the nuclear hexagram, and that gives a little bit of added description about inner truth. And the corners of the mouth in this context is about understanding other people in terms of what they feed on. Corners of the mouth. So if you want to know whether to trust someone, just look at what they're eating. Look at what nurtures them. Is it money? Is it love? Is it hedonistic Is it hedonism? Whatever it is, whatever nurtures them, and once you know what nurtures someone, you're in a position to know whether or not you can trust them. So that's another aspect of inner truth. But overall, I think today there's a great sense of understanding, and once we understand the truth about ourselves, about our position in society, about the people around us, things are going to feel a whole lot better. So now I'm going to turn to the astrology, and I just want to, very quickly look at the conjunction between Mars and Pluto, which is technically exact tomorrow, but I think today I want to talk about it today. So Mars and Pluto, we get the idea of Mars and Pluto as being very forceful, don't we? Because Mars is the planet of assertion. It's energetic, and Pluto is the planet of obsession. It's someone who obsessively, perhaps, wants to get their way. It can be quite violent. They are going to get their way, come what may. I mean, that may be one approach to it. An alternative approach might be that Pluto hides what it touches. So some people with Mars conjunct Pluto may want to keep their assertion to themselves. And I should also say that Mars is a male planet. So perhaps in a female chart, Mars-Pluto may say something about someone's partner, spouse. Maybe a woman who has Mars-Pluto conjunction may be attracted to men who are very assertive and very controlling. That is a possibility. Although when I look at the people I'm going to cover today, well, there is one biological woman who is very assertive, and there is one woman who I think has changed gender, who was originally a man. So there are looking at the people I'm going to be looking at. So I'm not convinced that my sample shows that, but looking at it from a theoretical perspective, Mars conjunct Pluto could indicate something from outside, a controlling man in a woman's chart. Okay, so let's look at some people with Mars conjunct Pluto, and events with Mars conjunct Pluto. In fact, I think I will start with the events. So the D-Day landings. So the D-Day landings, June the 6th, 1944. This was when the British and the Americans and the Canadians, they crossed the English Channel and they landed in German-occupied France, and they landed on the beaches, and it was a major event. The Germans' Atlantic Wall was breached. So in terms of the history of war, the D-Day landings was a huge event, and we can see here that at that time there was a Mars-Pluto conjunction. So I mean, it wasn't an exact Mars-Pluto conjunction. It was, but it was within 1.5 degrees, something like that. So that kind of fits, doesn't it? I mean, Mars-Pluto, massive force in one particular area. The invasion of German-occupied Europe didn't just happen across a wide front. It happened in one place. Someone was trying to work out the weaknesses of the German defences. They went for one tiny little. Well, okay, I think it was 5 beaches, but over a fairly concentrated area. And perhaps that's how Mars-Pluto works. It doesn't just go for the whole thing. It just go for the whole target. It decides on one area it's going to throw all its energy into. And so I think that kind of fits quite well with the Mars-Pluto symbolism. So a couple of organizations with Mars-Pluto conjunctions. The European Union, this was when the Maastricht Treaty came into force. And you can see that there was a Mars-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. I would see this Mars-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio as possibly being quite hidden and not immediate. The European Union, perhaps was not seen as being a particularly authoritarian organization, a particularly aggressive organization, and maybe it was hidden, this Mars-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio, but I think it's just become stronger and stronger and stronger as time has gone on. And so now, remember, Mars is in Scorpio. Mars works very well in Scorpio. Mars rules Scorpio. And so as the European Union has developed, we've had a heavy controlling organization which will destroy countries. If one of its member states tries to act independently, it will smash it. I mean, look what happened to Greece after the financial crisis. We've just had Hungary. Remember how Hungary was trying to hold. The European Union wanted to give, I think, $50 billion to Ukraine, or was it euros? One of the two. I think 15 billion over each year for 4 years, and Hungary was holding out. And basically, the European Union, I think there was an article in the Financial Times saying it was threatening to destroy the Hungarian economy if Hungary kept resisting this 50 billion grant to or whatever it was, I don't know whether it was a loan or a grant, to Ukraine. So Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, didn't really have a choice, did he? And so that's Mars in Scorpio. You can see Mars conjunct Pluto in Scorpio, acting in a kind of hidden way, making secret threats. But still a sign of a sort of a vicious organization. And we might not have seen the European Union as a vicious and controlling organization, but now we're perhaps starting to see it. Another organization with Mars conjunct Pluto is Hamas. Hamas has Mars conjunct Pluto in Scorpio. And this took place during the first it formed during the first Intifada. So the first Intifada started on December the 9th, 1987, where there was a Mars-Pluto conjunction. And under this same Mars-Pluto conjunction, Hamas came into being. Mars-Pluto conjunction. If you are a sort of a military orientated party like Hamas, having a Mars-Pluto conjunction is probably very useful. You're very good at being violent. That's what you do. I'm not making any opinions about Hamas, but they've got Mars-Pluto conjunction. They know how to be violent, and they know how to be intensely violent. Almost building these tunnels under Gaza, that really fits, doesn't it? That Mars-Pluto conjunction. So they're causing a lot of issues there. So I think Hamas really does give us a good idea about what the Mars-Pluto conjunction is about. Yeah, it's concentrated force, concentrated and continued force. That just keeps going. That it's not something that we can just just get rid of. And look at Israel. It's throwing all these resources into defeating Hamas in Gaza. But they've got Mars in Scorpio. Mars keeps going on, and of course Mars Scorpio to the death, and sort of. Scorpio is a sign that's associated with death. The death doesn't bother Hamas, and so perhaps that's how we can see Mars conjunct Scorpio. So let's quickly look at a few people who have got Mars conjunct Pluto in Scorpio. I'm not going to spend very long on them, but not least because I don't really know much about them. But we've got right-wing commentator Ben Shapiro. He's all over YouTube. Videos of him arguing with liberals. He's very anti-abortion, very pro-Israel. conservative, and you can see he has got Mars-Pluto in Scorpio, and he's, I suppose, a very effective, focused arguer with that Mars-Pluto conjunction. And so that Mars-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio, yeah, it seems to be working very well for him. He's not someone you want to take on. People just like to put on, you can see there are just tons of videos of him winning arguments. So people on the right regard him as some kind of hero because they like to show videos of him winning arguments. And so that's how Mars-Pluto conjunction might work for him. So it's just a reminder that Mars-Pluto can, in certain situations, argue very well. Though in his case, you'll notice that he's got Mercury at 1 Capricorn, sextile his Mars-Pluto. So, okay, I don't think you would necessarily say Mars-Pluto on its own is good at winning arguments, but when you've got Mercury sextile Mars-Pluto, maybe it is. Someone else would be the actress Diana Rigg. So Diana Rigg obviously originally became famous in the 1960s with the Avengers. I think she was able to become even, recently. I know she died a few years ago, but I think she was in Game of Thrones, and I've looked at some of her interviews. If you look at her interviews, Diana Rigg was a very assertive woman who didn't suffer fools gladly, and she had a close Mars-Pluto conjunction in Cancer. Though maybe that role as Emma Peel in the 1960s Avengers, she was able to sort of live out some of that Mars-Pluto conjunction, but being a sort of a woman who's into sort of martial arts and being aggressive and I suppose killing people. That was her role in the Avengers as Emma Peel. And I think in real life, if you look at the interviews, she seems pretty pretty assertive and pretty rude when she wants to be. And I think with the Game of Thrones, I don't know. I mean, I know nothing. I've never seen Game of Thrones, but I think didn't she poison someone? And that's Mars-Pluto in Cancer. Maybe it's telling her something about the roles she was taking, and so killing someone surreptitiously would be perhaps a Mars-Pluto thing. But that's just a role she was playing. But I would have thought, from what I know about Diana Rigg, that she was living out her Mars-Pluto, and she was not projecting it. Now, I remember I was saying that a woman with Mars-Pluto conjunction may be attracted to controlling men and whatever, and projecting it. I mean, I don't know about what kind of men she was attracted to, but clearly she was living out her own Mars-Pluto, and that Mars was not being projected. Paul McCartney has Mars-Pluto conjunction. There is Mars at 2 Leo, Pluto at 4 Leo. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that, he was... apparently he was very, very hard. I was watching an interview with Ringo Starr, and Ringo Starr was saying he was, of all the Beatles, he was the most hard-working. So that may be another aspect of Mars-Pluto, being hard-working. Mars in working on, more than the others. And I suppose that work ethic just continues beyond the Beatles, and maybe that Mars-Pluto was one of the reasons the Beatles broke up. I know Yoko had something to do with it, but Yoko and John Lennon and so forth. But maybe that Mars-Pluto represents someone who wanted to be in control, wanted things to be done in a particular way, and I suppose when things weren't working out as he wanted them to work out, that maybe did contribute to the breakup of the Beatles. I think was that in the 1970s, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know a great deal about Paul McCartney. So I was looking at an interview with Ringo Starr, and Ringo Starr has a Mars-Pluto conjunction. Mars-Pluto conjunction in Leo. He was born a couple of years before. He was born 2 years before Paul McCartney. I really don't know anything about Ringo Starr except that he's obviously famous as being a drummer. Mars-Pluto could relate to drumming. Mars-Pluto, intense energy, perhaps putting it into drumming. That is a possibility. Something to consider. But Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney do seem very different people, though it's kind of interesting that two of the Beatles were born with a Mars-Pluto conjunction. Anyone else? Okay, Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan, if you look at his chart, there's his Mars-Pluto conjunction. It's connected with Uranus as well, and he's got you can see that Piers Morgan's Mars is all over the place. He's got a Mars-Saturn opposition, Moon opposition Mars, Mars conjunct Uranus, Mars conjunct Pluto. He comes over as being a very assertive. He comes over as being very assertive, very angry. Now we could get that from this whole opposition. So which one is it? Where's the Mars-Pluto? Is it going to be the Moon conjunct Saturn? Is it going to be the Mars conjunct Saturn? Is it going to be the Moon opposition Mars? The Mars opposition Uranus? Where's the Mars-Pluto? It may be about obsession. One thing I get the impression that Piers Morgan is obsessed about is, for example, Meghan Markle. He obviously can't stand Meghan Markle, and he goes on and on and on about Meghan Markle and how awful she is. And maybe that's how his Mars conjunct Pluto is working. Once he gets it into his head that he needs to say something, he doesn't like something, he just doesn't stop. And that might be the obsessiveness of Mars conjunct Pluto. Then we got Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning was she was originally a man, but she was involved, I think, in WikiLeaks. She was in the military, and she got arrested, served time in prison. So in her case, the Mars conjunct Pluto may say something about sexuality, her sexuality, and the reasons behind why there was a sex change, or rather why she wanted to change sex. I suppose having Moon conjunct Mars conjunct Pluto, you could say that there's a sexual issue and an issue of transformation. Also, the way she was taking documents, she asserted herself by taking documents and sending them to, I think, WikiLeaks. And so Mars-Pluto, for some people, they might act behind the scenes, and in this way, that's how they assert themselves. Finally, I'm going to. There is the Argentine president, Javier Milei. I think that's pronounced. You pronounce the J like an H. So he's the president of Argentina, who we've got, remember the standard picture of him is with a chainsaw. He wants to take a chainsaw to everything in Argentina, the central bank. I think he wants to privatize things. He wants to get rid of the peso, replace it with the dollar. Really extreme action. Now his Mars-Pluto conjunction is disassociate. You can see that his Mars is in Libra, but his Pluto is in Virgo. So that's that might at first sight weaken the conjunction because it's in different signs. It's still around 3 or 4 degrees apart. But the thing about his Mars-Pluto conjunction is it's on the Aries point. See, there's the Aries point. So he's got Aries on the Mars-Pluto conjunction. So the Aries is the world at large, the global situation, and how people see him, and how he's relating to the world at large. I'll just see what Vita says about Aries on the Mars-Pluto midpoint. I'm not saying it's going to be appropriate, but let's just see what does Vita say. But Aries on the Mars-Pluto. Plans in an organization which concern the public, organizing, supervising the general work, general administration, civil service. Well, that's how he's putting it. I mean, I think Vita should have perhaps made it a bit more intense than that. But he's certainly changing everything. He's changing the civil service. He's changing society. He's sort of tearing up Argentine society. It's a great battle. And so I think that Javier Milei with his Mars-Pluto conjunction, particularly as it's on the Aries point, that seems to work quite well. Okay, so that's a few people with Mars-Pluto conjunctions. You can see that it has different manifestations, and so when you're doing a chart and you see Mars-Pluto conjunction, you do have to consider the context. Is it going to be someone who's going to be deceptive, using their power, their assertiveness in a sort of a roundabout way? Is it going to be someone who's going to be controlling? Is it going to be someone who's going to leak documents but no one knows, or someone who tries to do it in a surreptitious way? Is it someone who's going to use immense force in a particular direction? Is it someone who's going to be obsessive about one thing, like Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle? It depends on the situation, but I think we get sort of general theme by looking at these people, these people and organizations, and one event. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you found that interesting and useful, even enjoyable, perhaps. But if you like the video, enjoyed the video, then I would be grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed and you enjoyed the video, I would be very happy if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks very much for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.